Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, joined by Dr. Jerome Corsi. Dr. Corsi, good to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
My pleasure, Kevin. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Corsi, let's talk about your new book. Certainly, your timing is impeccable.
Well, the new book is Silent No More, and the subtitle is How I Became a Political Prisoner of Mueller's Witch Hunt. And I wrote this through what was kind of a horror experience. I was subpoenaed by Mueller's grand jury on August 28th, and I spent 40 hours in 6 sessions over 2 months, August and September, with Mueller's FBI and 3 of the special counsel and 6 of the FBI, and this small conference room, no windows, in a southeast Washington building that was unmarked for the FBI, but the FBI had offices there. And it goes on hour and hour. I mean, they would get up and leave and threaten to put me in jail the rest of my life and all kinds of, and I'd be sitting in that room alone for hours waiting to see what was going to happen next with my attorney over talking to them in another conference room. Nothing to do. I couldn't even go out of that room to the restroom without being accompanied. So the whole thing was, I went in to cooperate with Mueller, and it turned out that they blew the whole thing up. I gave them my laptops, my cell phone, my emails. But in the final analysis, they wanted me to have a connection with Julian Assange, to connect Roger Stone to Julian Assange. That was their great Russian collusion conspiracy theory. But I don't have a connection with Julian Assange. I don't know Julian Assange. I've never communicated with him, never met him. In any way, I've never communicated with him or anyone connected to him. So when I couldn't give them what they want, then suddenly they're going to throw me in prison the rest of my life because they play this memory trap and they say I lied to them, which I did not do.
Indeed. What was it like, Dr. Corsi? You faced so many people. You faced down Obama. We go back to the SwiftBoat Veterans for Truth. What was that like to be in those rooms as a person? I'm sure you detail it in the book.
I detail in the book. It's very frightening. I mean, it's a very disorienting and difficult experience. They're firing questions at you. You don't know where they're going. The special prosecutors sit there with an 8-inch thick book of everything about you. My name is on it. I asked Aaron Zelinsky, he was one of the 3 prosecutors. He was the youngest, most arrogant. I said, is that book all about me? He said, well, we're not going to tell you, Dr. Corsi. Of course, it obviously was. We're not going to tell you how many more of these books we have, he said. So they would ask you questions, and then if you gave an answer, they might pull out an email or a memo from 2 years ago, 2016, say, what you said here contradicts what you just said. And over, I had to keep saying, why don't we quit playing this stupid game? I came here to cooperate with you guys, and if you've got something you want me to see or comment on, show it to me, or let's discuss it. But, I'm not here to play this 20-question memory game with 3 special counselors and 6 FBI taking down everything I say and doing an analysis of whether I'm being honest or not. I said, it just drove me crazy. And this book, Silent No More, details it hour by hour, in this experience going through between sessions, working with your lawyer, trying to figure out what's going on. And they said they didn't want me. I was not under investigation. I was not a target. They just wanted me for evidence. I was supposed to give testimony. But, I can't make up a lie. And I knew Assange, or I had a connection to Assange. I can't give them that. So we don't give them what they want. Then they blow up, act up, make faces, walk out of the room en masse, come back, question you. I said, I can't remember all my emails at all. I can't remember every phone conversation from 2016. I barely remember any of them. And yet, they continue to say, what did this person say on this day? What did you think? What did he think? If you want to know what that person thought, you better go ask them. But it was a nightmare.
Dr. Corsi, do you think you're out of the woods yet?
No, and this is not justice in America. Now that they didn't get what they want, they wanted me to plead guilty. They threw us out. They said, next you'll have to plead to. The only thing I didn't do anything wrong at all. But they said, now you're going to have to plead to lying to us. Well, the definition of that law is knowingly and wittingly giving to the special counsel of the FBI, agents of the federal government, information you know to be untrue with an intent to deceive them. Well, I didn't do that. And so this first day, before I downloaded my 2016 emails, they asked me if I wanted to send anybody to see Julian Assange. I said no. Well, then they produced these 2 emails, that I had forgotten about. And I said, I have not been able to download my 2016 emails. I had a broken down 17-inch laptop that I've been nursing along, the MacBook Pro. They don't make that size anymore. And I've been using the Time Machine application to back up that computer 4 times a month on an external hard drive. I gave them the hard drive. When I did finally download my emails, I found these 2, and I came back 10 days later and amended the testimony. Now, if we fast forward to when it's over and they want me to plead guilty, the one charge they gave me was the first day's mistake. I had to plead guilty to saying I didn't want anybody to go to see Assange, as if I were trying to mislead them, without acknowledging that I'd amended that testimony. And I thought that was completely fraudulent. Among other things in that plea deal, that was very fraudulent. And I said, I'm not going to go before a judge and put my hand on a Bible, swear to God that I committed a crime I didn't commit. You guys are so dishonest, you want me to, make up a crime because you allowed me to amend that testimony. And I'm not going to go, before God. I am religious. Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and I'm not going to, risk eternity for staying out of jail. So you guys can put me in jail. If you guys are this corrupt, this politically driven, then put me in jail the rest of my life, and they still might do it.
Dr. Jerome Corsi joining us, talking about his experience, his new book. Dr. Corsi, how fearful should we be of Mueller compared to you exposing Obama and all the award-winning exposés you've done over the years, sir?
Well, that's a good question. I think that this is the time now when the censorship, the political criminals are in charge of the Justice Department. Your Strzok, Page, all these others who used a document, the Steele dossier, to get this FISA court surveillance on Donald Trump. All that, those were crimes, and they're going completely unpunished. My crime was that I supported Donald Trump, and maybe that I believe in Jesus Christ. I think that's going to be soon outlawed in this country. If you don't agree with the LGBT agenda, what I went through is the prelude, and everybody understands this, the prelude of what this hard left intends to do to everybody. Because thought crimes, of George Orwell, 1984, are going to be persecuted. And my experience, I think, was extremely frightening, because now the hard left is these political criminals who will give Hillary a pass, have all the power and all the money, the huge amounts of money. They can, they would have an army of FBI investigating me. They still do. This interview will probably be monitored by someone in the FBI. They have endless resources. A particular meeting that occurred in October 2016, which I thought various people had attended. They pointed out to me, that Ted Malloch was taking an international flight the day of that meeting. They had even researched where everybody was in that meeting. They probably have a recording of it from the FISA electronic surveillance. I was probably under FISA electronic surveillance. If not, they got it from the NSA. The NSA may have had me under surveillance because I've opposed the hard-left Democrats. I may have been under surveillance since I co-authored with John O'Neill on Fit for Command in 2004, the Swiftboat book against John Kerry.
Our great friend Dr. Corsi with us here on KIDO Talk Radio, talking about his experience. Dr. Corsi, you go to these dire predictions. I don't believe that people would disagree with you as far as the thought police. What do you make of the president? We're not here to blame the president. We support the president, but can he help you? Can he help himself, sir?
Well, I think, ultimately, I think Donald Trump is going to win. I think it was a major blow to Mueller when I told Mueller and his whole team to take a hike. And I'm staying with that. I said, I'm not accepting your plea deal. And the plea deal, I said, well, when would you guys sentence me? Well, Dr. Corsi, you'll go before a federal judge, and you'll plead that you're guilty of a felony, that maybe a year later we'll sentence you. So in that year, they own me. I would have to give up writing. I'd have to give up doing investigative research. Because if I did anything they didn't like, at the end of that year, they'd come before the federal judge and at sentencing, because now I'm a criminal for a year. And they say, he's not been a good boy, so we're going to recommend prison time. Because the original deal was plead to this one crime, which I didn't commit. Just lie that you committed the crime. That's what they offered me. That's what Mueller's team offered me. And then you won't have to go to prison. So wait a minute. What about if I can't work and can't write, I'm going to go bankrupt. We're going to lose the house. We're going to lose everything. I have to tell a bankrupt judge that I'm a federal felon. Jeannie Rhee, who is a lead of the three prosecutors, who is a Hillary Clinton attorney, works at the same law firm as Mueller, represented Hillary Clinton as a lawyer in her email case and in her Clinton Foundation racketeering cases. Jeannie Rhee says, well, Dr. Corsi can't tell the bankruptcy judge because it's sealed that he's a felon. We're going to seal his appearance before the U.S. District Judge where he pleads this one count. I said, well, I've got insurance and securities licenses. Jeannie Rhee said, well, you can't tell those regulators either. So now they're not only demanding I lie to a crime I did not commit, which they allowed me to amend the testimony, in fact, but they're also demanding that I violate bankruptcy regulations. That could be a law, it could be a crime, lying to a bankruptcy judge. I have to lie to or not disclose to the securities regulators, the insurance regulators, that my status has changed, that I'm now a felon. I said, only a criminal. I've been a political criminal who hates me because of my political writings, trying to silence me and bankrupt me, destroy my family, would give me a plea offer like that. I said, you guys can take it and go take a hike. I'm not doing it. 72 years old. If this is the corruption that American justice has become, I'm going to write a book about it. So I wrote Silent No More and give you a day-by-day description. And by the way, that book will be out soon as an audio book. I recorded it, so if you want to hear me describe the experience, the audio book of Silent No More will be available soon. And the hardcover will be available in March, but I didn't want to wait. I want to make sure that the ebook and the audio book are available right away.
More coming up with Dr. Corsi next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio, our great friend, Dr. Jerome Corsi, joining us. Silent No More, his new book on KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get back to the abuses of the Justice Department. Dr. Corsi, you've told us on earlier interviews, and you've been all over the place, which has got to disturb Mueller and all these other folks, that you came in to cooperate, you brought in your MacBook, you're bringing things in, and it was just a different world once they have you in that room.
In the first hours, it changed, because as soon as I, forgot 2 emails and made this incorrect statement that I didn't want to send anybody to see Assange, they produced one email from July 2016 where Roger Stone had sent me an email saying, basically somebody should go see Assange, and I forwarded that to Ted Malloch in London. I said, Ted, from Roger, Jerry. It took me about 20 seconds to do that. And when I forgot that email, they produced it. They said, we have documentary evidence that contradicts what you said, that can prove demonstrably that what you said was false. Well, that's, by the way, not the definition of the crime, but it makes it sound like it. And then they all storm out. They, take my attorney, move, reach back in with their fingers, say, come over here. My attorney goes over to them in their conference room. I'm in this closed-in conference room with no windows, no cell phone, no laptop, pacing around for an hour, wondering what they're doing. They all come back in and they say, well, they could throw me in prison right now. I said, no, you can't. I didn't lie. I forgot an email. That's how it's. They use the whole psychology of their interview process to threaten you from day one, destabilize you, put you in psychological fear, and then they proceed to question you in detail. It's like the communist Chinese did with American soldier prisoners of war in the Korean War. Brainwashing you into, by psychological abuse. This is not America. This is Gestapo. This is the KGB preparing to send you to the Gulag. This is George Orwell's 1984 in reality. I'm bringing criminal charges against Mueller with the acting Attorney General Whitaker and with Inspector General Horowitz. Now, they both may be deep state actors. I'm really doubtful the Justice Department can clean up itself. I think it'll just continue covering up for itself. I don't think Huber's done a thing. This guy who was supposedly from Utah, appointed by Jeff Sessions to work with Horowitz as a prosecutor. We're learning now he's never called his grand jury. He's never pursued any criminal investigations. It's a farce. And if the justice system in America is going to be run by hard left politicians who are criminal in that they're willing to cover up crimes on their side, well, they use a criminal interrogation mentality and methodology to put people like me in prison or silence me when they admitted I'd committed no crime to start out. This is not America.
More with Dr. Corsi in a minute. Traffic and weather together. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave. Kevin Miller with our great friend, Dr. Jerome Corsi, on KIDO Talk Radio, talking about his experience with the special prosecutor. Silent No More, his new book, his audio book as well. Dr. Corsi, let's take a look at the impact it's had on you and your family. Everybody knows you, your best-selling work, your investigative pieces, but you're a family man, right?
Yeah, I have a family. I've been married 27 years. Same woman. Then, God willing, be 27 more. But the point is, this about nearly bankrupts you. I mean, you have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on lawyers. And, of course, if Peter Strozek puts up a GoFundMe ad, or Lisa Page, they get $250,000 overnight. On our side, nobody contributes, or they contribute very, very little. So it takes a long time to build. I've raised now about $35,000 on my CorsiNation.com. I've got a PayPal and a donor box and a GoFundMe, also a post office box where you can send me checks. But our side lets you, hang in the wind, spend your own resources, because they just don't come to your assistance the way the left. Soros put down $1 million and don't even think about it. Nobody on our side will do that. So you face, every night you wake up and nightmares of losing everything, losing the home. His dad going to prison on Christmas or New Year's. Well, I can't say no. But they're still hounding my family. They did a door knock on my stepson, 40 years old, and said to him, are you Dr. Corsi's computer specialist? And he laughed at him. He said, no. So, well, we have a text message here where Dr. Corsi asked you to scrub a computer for him. Were you destroying evidence? And he said, that was an old computer he hadn't used on his desk for a long time because the memory was packed. And my mother needed a computer to her business. And Dr. Corsi said, why don't you just take this old computer, scrub it back to factory, and give it to my wife? Well, that's what he did. But, they're now harassing my family. And these guys are vicious dogs. Once you oppose them and tell them to take a hike, now they come after you with a vengeance because they got to break you. And they're determined to break me. But I can give them a message. It's not going to happen.
Well, Dr. Corsi, let's go back to the financial cost, that it's really not disclosed. And you bring up a good point. The libs come to the aid of their own. We always let our own people hang. But, I mean, the idea of not only coming at you legally, but financially as well, because you've got to, as you know, sir, divert all your resources to your defense.
Well, and they've got unlimited resources. They can have, 50 FBI doing nothing but watching me and my family all day long. And who's to stop them? If they're determined that they're going to persecute me and put me in prison for something, they can go research every aspect of my life. Now, I've been, fortunately, going back to Unfit for Command in 2004, those were the first IRS audits. I've been under harassment from this government for a long time. The IRS and now the Justice Department are in the control of political criminals who don't have any, Jesus Christ means nothing to them. They ridicule God when the special prosecutors during this interview. I told them that when in Italy in 2016, July and August, I figured out that Assange had Podesta's emails and would drop them in October. So I didn't have anybody's help. So Jeannie Rhee, this prosecutor who is the prosecutor for, she's a lawyer for Hillary Clinton, who, by the way, took it on a day. One day we went to the grand jury, she wears a see-through blouse. She says to me, now, Dr. Corsi, you're asking us to believe that on this international trip to Italy with your wife and family for 27th wedding anniversary, God intervened and you had a miracle. So that God inspired your mind to think that Assange has Podesta's emails. Ms. Rhee, I don't really appreciate you ridiculing God. But if you're asking me if I figured it out, I've told you that a dozen times now that I did not have any help. You want me to search through all these different people, my emails, everything else. We've spent 20 hours now looking for somebody to connect me with Assange. You can't produce it, and I can't produce it. But that's how, this is the nature of these prosecutors. It's abusive. And and they have everything. They have massive data on you. What it convinced me is we're under massive surveillance. I filed a suit in federal court, charging that illegal surveillance of the population is massive, as proved by my case, that they leaked to the grand jury, which I can also prove, and they use criminal techniques in interrogation. And the judge in the case, Judge Leon in Federal District Court in Washington, D.C., has called a hearing for this on January 3rd, right after New Year's. I'll be there.
More coming up with Dr. Corsi next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Dr. Jerome Corsi joining us, Silent No More, his new bestseller. Dr. Corsi, what's it like when you go on the shows and you tell the truth? MSNBC, we watch these folks. Are they as vicious as the FBI?
They are. They constantly want to twist things and, put you in the worst possible light. Again, they're hard political. We've now moved into an era where if you're a conservative, if you believe in Jesus Christ, you're going to be persecuted. We don't put an end to this now. It's just the beginning. And when I did nothing wrong, I went in to cooperate. I gave my computers, my laptops, the external hard drives that have been backing up my laptops through 2016 and 2017, my email accounts, username or password. They still treat you like a criminal. They still play this memory game, which is, to take a book 8 inches thick with all your material in it and ask you a question and then pull out something from 2 years ago that contradicts what you said. You don't remember it precisely. Well, I can't remember all the telephone calls, all the emails. I'm not a human tape recorder. Can't push a button and suddenly I'll have instant recall with 100% precision. It doesn't happen. I'd hardly remember the emails and phone calls at all from 2 years ago. I'm 72 years old. I don't think anybody can remember that, even if you're 27 years old. But the point is, it's a stacked game, the way they question you, and they use all the resources of the government, all the authority they have to imprison you, to destroy your family, and to bankrupt you. And from the beginning, they make you feel afraid. It's a psychological torment. It's completely has nothing to do with U.S. justice. And if they want to put me in prison the rest of my life, because the crime is knowingly and willfully giving them false information that you knew to be false with the intent to deceive them. Well, when I gave them my life voluntarily to begin with, how did I intend to deceive them? They'll never prove that in court. And if they want to go ahead and try it, if they get a rigged jury and convict me anyway, I'll go to prison. If that's where we are, the United States of America, if that's where justice is, then the American people need to see me, a 72-year-old with a long history. As my attorney said, look in your rearview mirror. A lot of corpses of Democrats in your wakes, and they want to get you. They're gunning for you. That's my attorney warned me, and he was right.
Dr. Corsi, we go back to your time against the Obama regime, and this sounds like something would happen when Obama was president, not when Trump was president. We've talked about this, but just hearing the stuff what you're going through, you would think that somebody would come to your aid.
Well, I mean, it started with Obama. Certainly during Obama was all the attempt to deny Donald Trump the election with this false dossier and, the Steele dossier, and Lisa Page and Strozik, the two FBI criminal lovers, said this would be their insurance policy. In other words, even if Donald Trump won, they could torment and resist and obstruct and try to get him thrown out of office for the next 4 years until his term was over. And if he dares to try to get an attorney general that'll do something, they threaten to impeach him. I mean, Donald Trump is facing his own political life and future, and he's under the same kind of torment. Now, I still think Donald Trump always looks like he's going to lose until just before he wins. I've always said that about him, and I think Donald Trump will. This investigation from Mueller has got to be coming to an end because it's a complete farce. They have two indictments against, a dozen or more in each of these indictments, Russians who are never going to come back and face trial. The Russian collusion that anybody, so they spent a few $100,000 in social media, Russia did. They can't even prove, Mueller can't even prove. I said, you guys don't even know for sure that the Russians stole these emails from the Democratic National Committee. Julian Assange says that they didn't steal them. It was not the Russians. And so, well, Dr. Corsi, we're not interested in your theories of who stole the emails. Well, you ought to be, because unless you can prove the predicate of your investigation, this entire thing is spending, millions and millions of dollars and terrorizing anybody who worked hard to support or get Donald Trump elected, and you're destroying the fundamental principles of free speech in America by making politics a crime. We disagree with you, now we're criminals.
Dr. Corsi, what's it like to be monitored and have your family under surveillance all the time?
It's a horror show because you never know what's going to happen. My wife hates it, hates having the family involved in this. She's very private. She doesn't want, no one in my family has any involvement in politics whatsoever except for me. They're all trying to live their ordinary lives. Everybody pays taxes. But, have the FBI parking, SUVs with two FBI agents outside and here and there monitoring you all the time and knocking the door on my, door knocks without an announcement on my stepson who's 40 years old in his home. These kind of intrusions, make my wife think, she's frightened. So the whole family's frightened. It destroys holidays. It destroys your life. You're spending thousands of dollars to try to defend yourself. And I'm saying I'm 72 years old. I've worked hard to, honor this country and preserve what I consider to be the Founding Fathers' freedoms that we were bequeathed, and I'm seeing rapidly the loss of the First Amendment and the loss of the ability to even engage in politics. We've become worse than 1984. We've become King George III with massive amounts of money for surveillance and unlimited ability to have electronic surveillance of the population 24/7. Wait till they get face recognition technology. They'll know every place you go and everything you do.
Is there any way to stop it, Dr. Corsi?
Yeah, you can end the NSA, you can end the CIA, you can get back into the First Amendment and the freedoms that we were supposed to have, and that's why I've got this federal lawsuit. I'm going to do everything I can to bring this in. We get one federal judge that will allow this to go forward. Maybe Judge Leon on January 3rd will let my suit go forward. I intend to bring this issue to the entire nation. I intend to bring it to the entire nation before I have to go to jail to do that.
Dr. Corsi, let's talk about the campaign. What was that like? I mean, we have all these allegations against you, but what was that like to be involved and to cover it?
Well, I worked hard. I mean, I covered the campaign. I worked with Roger Stone. Everybody in the world wanted to know what Julian Assange had. Now, they made that a crime. I wrote my dissertation at Harvard in 1972 in the Pentagon Papers, which, of course, they do a movie on the Post. And, it's a big hero. The New York Times and the Wall Street Journal published Daniel Ellsberg stole this classified Pentagon Papers, and the Supreme Court decided the newspapers had a right to publish them. That's celebrated because it was disclosures against Vietnam War and against Richard Nixon, and the left loved it. But today, when Julian Assange dropped these emails on Hillary Clinton, and the emails themselves, the content of those emails was what destroyed Hillary, now they want to criminalize anybody who wanted to find out what Julian Assange had. Instead of celebrating Assange as the same way they celebrated Daniel Ellsberg, it's entirely political, and the left hates Assange because the left has no tolerance of the First Amendment. They really didn't support the First Amendment, I don't think, even in 1971. They just supported that they got the Pentagon Papers published and could hopefully undermine the Vietnam War. Today, the left is absolutely opposed to the First Amendment principles that might defend Julian Assange or grant him immunity. And I think if Assange were granted immunity, he could show that it wasn't the Russians who got him these emails, and that would undermine the entire premise of Mueller's witch hunt. And I write about that in Silent No More, because I show you how I figured out on my own that it was Julian Assange had Podesta's emails. I figured that out in July and August when we were in Italy. Time to think about it. And I didn't need any help to do that. I also point out to you when I tried to explain these things to Mueller, and the 3 special prosecutors, the 6 FBI in this closed room, no windows in Washington, D.C., hour after hour after hour, no clock, refused to believe. Dr. Corsi, we're not interested in your narratives. We're not interested in what you think. We just want you to answer our questions. That's all we want you to do is just answer our questions. I mean, it was a horror show. I detail in this Silent No More. Jeannie Reed says, okay, there's this category now. These are things you really can't remember. These are things that you kind of vaguely remember. These are things you really can remember. And it shows me an email. That's, I think I can remember that one, but I don't know if I invented the memory after you just showed it to me, or if I am reconstructing the memory. So we don't have 3 categories here. We got about 9 in terms of you so confuse me about whether I remember or don't remember, or I'm inventing or reconstructing. I can't even answer your questions anymore. That's the kind of psychological torture they put you under.
More coming up with Dr. Corsi next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Our last segment with Dr. Jerome Corsi, Silent No More, on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Before we get to Dr. Corsi, let's get you to work safely and on time. KIDO Talk Radio traffic. Good morning, Dave. And thank you, Dave. So, Dr. Corsi, here we are. We've got about 8 minutes left in this segment here. You take a look at the president, and what do you think is going to happen to him? You said earlier that it's always darkest before the dawn for him, but it's like the long knives are waiting for him.
Well, I think it's basically this deep state, the Democrat hard left in control of Mueller and control of the Justice Department will not let the Justice Department be reformed no matter who Donald Trump puts there, because immediately they'll be co-opted, just like Jeff Sessions was. I don't think you can trust the Justice Department to reform itself. But I think my case where I stood up and said, no, I'll take a hike to Mueller. They didn't expect that. They expected that I was going to be so weak and so scared and so confused that I would do whatever they told me to stay out of prison. But I guess they didn't do a very good job profiling me, because I've, told John Kerry and Unfit for Command to take a hike. I've opposed Obama in 2 books, including Obama Nation, which was number 1, and my current book, Killing the Deep State, exposes this entire, I think, coup d'etat which is underway. And I think President Trump is fully aware of it. Now, it only sometimes takes one person. I mean, that was always the great story I took from Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible. when God first starts asking, find me find me 50 honest people, he gets down to one. God will say, I'll save the city if you can find one honest person, is what he tells Abraham. Well, what the point of that story is, it just takes one person. And my faith in Jesus Christ is such that I can be that one person just to say to them, no, I'm not going to go along with your lies, your corruption, your attempt to scare me, your attempt to bankrupt me. I'm not doing it. So you can put me in prison the rest of my life. I'm 72 years old. 1 year in prison could kill me. Well, so be it. And my wife finally woke up one morning and said, I'd rather visit you in jail until you die than have you not be the man I married.
Boy, that's tough to hear, Dr. Corsi.
Well, this is what you go through. This is what you live through. Is the FBI outside today in an SUV? I don't know. I've got to go look. There might be. Is the FBI monitoring this conversation? Probably. They have the resources to do it. They have the resources to virtually move somebody into my living room if they want to, monitor everything we do 24 hours a day. Well, I don't have any of these Alexa or other devices. They'd certainly be being monitored. No doubt about it. I'm confident from the questioning that the FBI not only knew the phone calls I made, I signed over to them the Verizon account, my phone calls. They had the numbers, but they knew the content of these phone calls. Well, they're not going to reveal to you that you're subject to FISA wiretapping in that whole process they did in wiretapping Donald Trump. They wiretapped Donald Trump into the White House through October 2017. This Department of Justice is still controlled by the Democrats and the hard left. The people who hate Donald Trump. There's no prosecutions. Strozik, Page, they get fired, but they're not being prosecuted. No grand juries investigating these people. But they're going to investigate Donald Trump until they can impeach him, even though everybody knows there was no Russian collusion. It's a joke.
Well, then you go to the tentacles of trying to go after his businesses, and the press is a powerful ally, Dr. Corsi, as you know, because they just throw everything out there, their lies.
Well, I think the American people are beginning to see through it, because they'll do the same to me. When I defied them and told them to take a hike, I was not going to do their plea deal. Then they, begin to investigate my family. They investigate my, giving to charity. They investigate everything I do. And they try to defame you by leaking from the grand jury. They try to make an issue by raising $25,000 in my website, CorsiNation.com, for a cancer patient. And they investigate. Of course, I didn't make a penny from that. All the money went to the person who was the cancer victim set up the GoFundMe account. Got every penny of it. I mean, I'm pretty bad at setting up a fraud if I don't get a penny out of it.
Right.
But they're going to investigate everything. I mean, I'm sure they've gone through all of our financial records, all of our tax statements. I'm sure they've monitored everything. I don't know if they have monitored every member of the family, but I'm sure I've been being monitored and still am right now. This is a massive surveillance police state. And when you get under the microscope, because they don't like my political views, Aaron Zelinsky, another one of the prosecutors, youngest, very arrogant, said to me, Dr. Corsi, you take this fact and that fact and you weave them with lies, get millions of people to believe them. So Zelinsky's just telling me he thinks all my political writing are just lies, conspiracy theorists. Well, if I've been a conspiracy theorist, why were we so effective with the Swift Boat campaign in exposing John Kerry's lies in Vietnam? Why were we so effective with the Obama Nation in exposing Barack Obama as a hard leftist trained in communism by Frank Marshall Davis when he was a youth? Why was my book Killing the Deep State also a New York Times bestseller, exposing Strozik, Page, and this entire conspiracy that reached up to Brennan, who advanced this Steele dossier, to the Obama White House that unmasked people, gave them to the press who were being under surveillance from the FISA electronic surveillance process, even though it was illegal. None of those people have been prosecuted. And this is the double standard of justice, unequal justice that we're living under. Well, yeah, I'm asking people to contribute to my legal defense fund so I don't go entirely bankrupt. We don't lose the house in the process. And at CoursyNation.com, you can find ways to contribute. And there's a PayPal, a GoFundMe, and a donor box. You can put down a post office box if you want to send me a check. We're trying very, very hard to raise enough to stay afloat. This book, Silent No More, I wrote first person, so you can feel like you're right there with me going through this 40 hours of inquisition under psychological distress over 2 months. It ruins your life. And that's their goal. The goal of this hard left Justice Department, political, is to make politics a crime such that anybody who supports Donald Trump is risking having their life ruined and going to prison.
Dr. Corsi, about less than a minute left. Can you tell us a little bit about your faith in God, sir?
Well, I'm founded in, my Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. I'm not here for an earthly purpose. My view of my life is I'll be judged, as we all will, by what we do here. And my goal is to support the First Amendment, the Founding Fathers, to preserve our freedoms. And in my life, I never believed we would be moving into becoming the Gestapo or the KGB with the Justice Department. But the Justice Department has now become a political enforcement effort for the hard left to punish anybody who believes in the Constitution, to punish anybody who believes in the First Amendment or the Second Amendment or the Fourth Amendment, punish anybody who believes in Jesus Christ, which is going to be soon a crime, who reads the Bible, which will be an outlawed book, who supports Donald Trump and worked for his election. This is a very frightening time in America, and I want people to look at what I'm going through and ask themselves if what you'll be doing when they knock on your door to take your weapons, what you'll be doing when they take your children away from them and put them into an LGBT elementary school, and if you object to it, you'll lose custody of the children. What are you going to do at that point?
Dr. Corsi, we appreciate you. God bless, sir.
God bless. Thank you very much, Kevin.